Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for stopping by today. Today I am creating a card using basically a piece of pattern paper. So I have so much pattern paper, and I'm trying to figure out some ways to get it used because I don't use it very often. So I took this really pretty piece of pattern paper from a 49 in Market. It is from I think it's called Reflections, Ink Reflections or something like that. If it's still available, I'll try and see if I can find it. And then I'm going to use the stamp set from Tim Holtz or Stampers Anonymous. And I bought this from Joann's. They have several new sets of these stencils and stamps. And so they were on sale and I grabbed a few of them. And so I'm going to take that 6x6 piece of paper. It's a really pretty paper. It's got some florals and some butterflies, and this is double-sided paper, so I'm going to go ahead and rip it in half, and I'm going to use both sides of those papers, and then I'm just going to take my tape runner and adhere those together along that rip line. And I'm going to trim it down so that there's a little bit of white space left on the right and left side and none on the top and the bottom. And then I'm taking this clear gesso. I put a little bit too much on this panel, and I'm also taking this silicone brush, which is useful because it's not going to leave those little brush strokes that you get with a bristle brush. And what that clear gesso is going to do is basically seal the paper so that I can add water and other elements on top of it without worrying about it destroying the paper. I am using my favorite paste. This is the Finnabar paper paste. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to use the stencil that came with the Stamp and Stencil set. And so I'm just adding it in several areas throughout that panel. I'll go ahead and set that aside to dry. And then I created this butterfly, and I didn't end up liking it. It's a piece of the pattern paper, and then I ended up coloring it. And so I didn't end up liking that, and so I do create another one. But for the first butterfly, I'm just spritzing it with a little bit of tea dye distress spray. And then I also created a circle for my butterfly, and I'm using the Dusty Concord distress spray for that, and I'm just spraying a little bit, and then I'm going to take some black soot distress spray and add some black splatter, and then I'm going to add a little bit of faded jeans distress spray, and then I'll spritz that with a little bit of water. And this is where the clear gesso comes in handy, because this water would not have done well on this paper without it, and so it does a really good job of sealing that paper off so that I can add water. And then I'm going to take some of these stamps from the stamp set, and I am using the Versafine Clair in Morning Mist, which is a gray color, and I'm going to stamp off and then stamp on my panel. I don't want the full strength of that pigment ink, and so I'm going to go ahead and stamp off so I get the lighter color. And so I'm going to take several of those stamps and add it around my card panel. I am using pigment ink because it is a waterproof ink and it will not bleed if I choose to add more water to this panel. And then I'm going to take some Pip pins and just add a little bit of color up in that corner where I had used the texture paste. And the Pip pins are permanent, but on a gessoed surface there is a little bit of leeway time where you can move that color around before it sets. And then I am taking some tea dye distress ink and going around the corners, and then I'm going to take that little cube and swipe it a little bit along the edges. And here's where I grab the other butterfly, or I run another butterfly through my die cut machine. I spritz that with the faded jeans and then some shimmer spray. And then I am going to take a bunch of different splatters, and I didn't end up liking it, so I took a baby wipe and kind of tried to get a little bit of that off. I think it gave it a kind of a cool smeared look. And again, the gessoed surface is what's going to allow me to wipe a little bit of that off without moving it around or destroying the fibers of the paper. So I didn't want to waste the other butterflies, so what I did was I stacked it so that it had a little bit of dimension. And so I'll go ahead and add some adhesive and set a block on that to dry. And then I love the way that stitching looks on cards, but I don't own a sewing machine. I don't know how to use a sewing machine, but I can do some simple stitches. So what I did was I took a foam base and my pick tool, and I just punched some holes across the card. And then I'm going to take a needle and thread and just add my own stitching. I don't really know what I'm doing, but just making the thread go through. And I don't know if you remember, but We Are Memory Keepers had this product called So Easy, and I have that with a bunch of thread and needles and templates. It's for adding like different threaded designs on cards or scrapbooking. And so I went ahead and I pulled that out, and that is what I used for the stitching and the needle. And then these sentiments are from another one of the Tim Holtz sets that is at Joann's. And I love this set because it has just a whole row of these little small sentiments. And so I grabbed 3 of them, and I am adhering those to the card. Of course, I am going to add some white splatter. And that will finish off this card. This was kind of a card of pulling out stuff that I don't use very often and getting it used up. And so I really enjoyed that. And this was a super fun card to make. So as always, thank you so much for stopping by and spending some time with me today. If you liked this video or found it informative, please go ahead and give a thumbs up. And thanks so much for joining me, and I hope to see you soon.